Hello, nerdlings, and welcome back. As always, I'm Zach Lane, aka Judge Zed, aka Zacharias the Pious of House Lane, first of his name, former Lord of Give a Shit a Sheer, Harbinger of Sass, and Holy Prince of the Sea of Ash, and Lord of the Game. And today, that game is going to be Project Triangle Strategy. That's the game I'm talking about today. I keep trying to say Octopath Traveler because honestly, Triangle Strategy, the review demo I'm going to be talking about, hit me. It hit me good. It's some good stuff. It has me going. I'm into it in a big way. I like what they've got going on. I love Final Fantasy Tactics. Is like the only Final Fantasy game that I enjoy. I'm sorry, Final Fantasy fans. I thought 7 was interesting. Like, the opening was pretty interesting. Once I got to the open world, though, there were some elements of it that just didn't really, like... I don't know. Just didn't hit me in the same way that it could have, so I just haven't, it's just a series I haven't really gotten into. And JRPGs in general is a genre I haven't really touched on very much. And I think that's pretty, there's a lot of people who like video games and people who like RPG video games who aren't big fans of JRPGs and the way that visual novels very much influenced the way that JRPGs developed over time. And Western RPGs. I mean, it's basically the visual novels had already existed in Japan for a while when, like games like NetHack and stuff started like coming over. And so the marriage of those two things is so natural and beautiful, and I think that without JRPGs, we would not have the kind of storyline in video games that you see today. I think a lot of people talk about Hideo Kojima and Metal Gear Solid as a series bringing stories into the world of role-playing games, or into the world of video games in general. But like, I think it was JRPGs long before then, long before the cutscene ever became the cutscene. There was JRPGs and visual novels, which were like all cutscenes, pretty much. And I got off on a tangent there, so we're going to get back to the topic at hand, Project Triangle Strategy. First complaint. That is a terrible name. That is an objectively horrible, horrible name that it cannot be stated strongly enough. This game cannot be called that. It is not a good, please, Square Enix, please listen to me. Do not call this game Triangle Strategy. Octopath Traveler worked out because all the characters' first letters of their names end up spelling Octopath, which is kind of neat. But Triangle Strategy is no. First of all, you have like a trifecta system. Like you have... Let's see if I can turn... Yes! I'll turn the voice all the way down. Just the music. You have this weird... And it's not weird, it's very cool. So, in the game there are like 3 alignments, basically. And you get to choose what alignment your character is through their actions, through the choices that they make. And the decisions trees seem to be very binary. Like, we're either going to do this or we're going to do this, or what if we did this? Like, and so, I mean, they show the symbol of the scales of being this is the decisions that we're going to do. Like, we're going to do this or we're going to do this. What do you think we should do? We need to decide that. And it's not quite up to you. It is. I mean, like, they do a really cool job of giving the player agency without giving the player like too much power over the story per se. Like, I know that's a really weird thing to say as somebody like, playing a video game. Is like, how much it's good. I really like it. I'm worried that from what I've seen in the demo, you kind of... I think you should play it if you're interested at all in any of these kind of games. Like, don't take my word for it, but in the demo, you go through, you end up rescuing a young prince who is wanted by this evil lord who wants to kill him. And you kind of have this choices like, do you want to hand him over to this evil guy, or do you want to, you know, keep him on your side? Or I feel like there was another thing you could potentially do there, and you have to go around and like talk to the other members of the court to sway their position on what you think is the best choice. And you even have to sway the prince himself at a certain point, and it was difficult to do. I was not. It was not a quick and easy thing for me. I thought it would be a lot more simple, but I even think that there was stuff that I missed, which I'm very intrigued about. So the storyline is very well done. It's very simplistic. It's a much smaller world map than we got with Octopath Traveler. Octopath Traveler, which had like so many. I'm still playing. I'm still in like my first 10 hours. And I have only gone through like 5 or 6 of the characters' first chapters. And I've got 2 more to go, and there's so many cities and wilderness areas in between those cities. But as you can see here, this game, we've got 3 major powers, each controlling a vital resource. You've got the Ace Frosties, who I believe are controlling iron, and you've got the Salt Lake town that controls the salt, and you've got the middle place, which is like the Cyrodiil, like this is like the medieval, you know, palace region, that is in charge of like the trade and is in charge of like the politics of you know, these 2 things. Oh, and food. I think it was food, actually. They also grow all the food there. So they each have this very important resource, and they each get into like this rivalry, this conflict known as the Salt Iron Conflict. Now you may think I'm going off on a tangent here, but I'm still on track. So these 3 get into a conflict called the Salt Iron Conflict, and there's 3 of them, right? So that eventually passes up until, you know, the events of our story begin. There's minor disputes or whatever. It's known as the Salt Iron War. Salt Iron as one word, you know, only the S is capital. So I guess, you know, food is kind of out of the question, but Salt Iron is such a cool word. Can we agree? You know, like iron is a dope. We all know iron's cool. Like, we all know what that invokes. Salt also invokes kind of a similar, like, hardness, coldness. You know, it's like this epicness. Like, if there was going to be a war called the Salt Iron War, yes, cut the food out of it. Yeah, the fact that there was food involved in the war is, like, kind of not as important as the fact that we needed the salt to keep the food, you know, from perishing. So, Salt Iron, amazing. What about this triangle? What about these 3 alignments that you can have in this game? And I can't name them off the top of my head because they're not. It's not like lawful, neutral, and chaotic. It's oh man, it was in the demo trailer. It was like the first thing they showed you, and like each one of the alignments kind of has like a character that's like the face character of that ideal. It's like, should we do what is, you know, what makes the most sense? Like, what's the most logical, straightforward path, or should we do what's best for everyone, or should we just try to benefit ourselves? And they called this the conviction system. This is not your character's alignment, it's your character's conviction, and your conviction causes your character to act certain ways. It's the decisions that you make. So here's what I have. We've got the Salt Iron Conflict that comes to a head. The Salt Iron War comes back. It's like the second Salt Iron War, basically. And then we have the mechanic. So the narrative is the Salt Iron Conflict. The Salt Iron is our narrative element. But the Ludo element is the central theme in this game. The central mechanic of the game is called your conviction. So come on, people. This is some basic math. The name that this game should be going by is Salt Iron Conviction. Tell me that I'm wrong. You cannot. And so please tell me that I am right by donating to my Venmo. Here it is. Square Enix, I'm expecting at least 10% of total sales of this game because I came up with the only name that is going to sell you decent copies. It's easy to remember. It's 2 words, and it perfectly encapsulates the product that you're trying to sell. But on a more realistic note, please call it Salt Iron Conviction. It's just a much better name, and it's like perfect. It's a double entendre meaning because of like the convictions of the characters and like a conviction of like a criminal, and obviously like there's this big bad evil guy who's doing this criminal stuff, and you have to decide like, oh, are we gonna convict him in a criminal court, or are we just gonna go after him and like kill him? Like, how are we gonna do this? And I feel like the game's gonna give you that kind of choice, you know, without knowing for sure. And the voice acting is great. Honestly, the art style is really good. I continue to really enjoy this. It's a expansion on Octopath Traveler. It's a slimming down of the world of Octopath Traveler. There's only like 3 major polities here, and a much smaller map. I think there's like going to be a lot less towns and a lot less overland travel than we saw with Octopath, which was almost like an open world game. This is going to be more story-driven and episodic in that regard, and so I'm very excited about that. Now, let's talk about something, you know, a little bit more tangible. Yes, the game should be called Salt Iron Conviction instead of Triangle Strategy. That's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. All right, next up. The story, how the storyline is presented to the players could use a little bit of work here. So this game is very story-driven, very character-driven, and because of that, there's a buttload of characters. I mean, I know that you get dropped off like halfway through the game or whatever in this demo, definitely after the first act. This is the start of the second act for sure. But so we're introduced to this guy right here. So he's talking right now. Oh no, he's not. King Regina is talking, right? So he's talking. We see his little pixel guy, and he looks like a little pixel guy, which is, you know, that's fine. But the game gives us the option to press X during the little dialogue here, and it will bring up an image, a profile picture, a little Facebook profile picture of the King of Glenbrook right here. So the King of Glenbrook. So how can, I mean, this is good, but when you look, you know, his pixel guy's kind of it's close. This is a much better drawing of this character, and this is what I want to associate with this character, not so much that little pixel guy. That little pixel guy's cool. He's cute. But this is the King of Glenbrook. That's a little pixel guy. That's the token representing the King of Glenbrook. This is the King of Glenbrook. So what I would like to see is an option for us to turn on like a little character portrait. You know, we get the name, but we also get like a tiny little character portrait as well. That would be super helpful. That's like, I think this is bad. I don't like this at all. Unless you give me a booklet that like has all the characters and their descriptions in it that comes with every copy of the game, that I can like, you know, flip. Oh, who's this guy? Look him up, and I can like read his little profile if I forget or I haven't played in a few months or whatever. Yeah, but also if we could just have that turned on in the little corner, that's fine. I don't think that there should be a dedicated button during cutscenes for you to bring up pictures of the characters. I think we should have the option to completely turn off the press X to profile picture and just have like a little switch for whether or not their illustrated face will appear in the same text box along with what they're saying. And that concludes every critical thing I have to say about this game demo. The writing was really good. The writing really had me sucked into the storyline and had me like rooting for these characters in a way that like I just don't really experience that frequently with video games. I will experience that with like maybe movies and books and stuff, but with video games it's a lot harder for me to like get sucked into a conflict that's going on or really anything. But they did such a good job of like playing with these tropes. And I mean it's a very tropey story. You know, there's like the masked knight who's mysterious and he dies at some point, but like all they find is his mask. So like, is he even still out there? Like, and you know he's coming back before the end of the third act. His name might as well be Chekhov, you know. But then there's also, you know, like the young prince who like cares more about his people than he cares about his own safety, and he's like he doesn't want all of this like pressure being put on him, so he's like very humble, and that makes him like is obviously the perfect leader. So yeah, it's like it's filled with all of these like Western medieval fairy tale trope stories, and it feels a lot like Game of Thrones, even in a cool way. And I love to see that from different studios, just like, hey, let's explore some cultures that are like, you know, not maybe they don't come as naturally to us. And on that same note, I'm just gonna, you know, drop Ghost of Tsushima. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Won like the best game of the year award in Japan, like voted by like Japanese gamers, or best action adventure game or something. And I was like, I might have to check that out. Like, I might really have to check into that, because I love like feudal, like the feudal Japanese period, like samurais like roaming around a lot, like mostly because of the film Seven Samurai and just Akira Kurosawa in general, kind of like sparking my imagination with that kind of stuff. But like, I am very intrigued of like a very highly praised game that covers that same period. To me, seems so interesting. Like, I would really like to check that out. And I will someday, you know, but maybe not this week. Take some time. We'll pick it up at some point. We'll pick it up when GameStop opens up another store in my city, because they're all closed. They're all gone. So there's no way for me to get used games right now unless I'm getting them like trading with friends over the mail. But if you got a used copy of this game you want me to play, So, let me get back to the point here. This game is awesome, and it solves like all my complaints about I'm playing Octopath. As I think I've probably already mentioned, this demo had me so hooked that I couldn't wait the full year for them to release the full game. I picked up their most recent other game, Octopath Traveler, in the 2D HD RPG trilogy, or saga, or whatever it is. And I'm so excited that like you can turn the camera 360. It's a tactical battle. It's not a turn-based game anymore. And that just leads me to this point of like, where are they going to go next with this series? I mean, when you think about it, like really, where is it that they're going next? Because they've already done where the beginnings of RPGs with the turn-based, attack, magic, item, combat system with Octopath, and now they're doing the tactics like you got with your Final Fantasy Tactics, and even the other older games like Wasteland and Wasteland 2, games with like much more like storied histories in the tactical subgenre of RPGs, tactical turn-based. And I'm thinking like the only next option is like a real-time like hack and slash, like open world, like custom character, custom class, all that jazz. But I'm probably being like way too hopeful. Like I think that this is such a cool art style, and it's such a cool way to reinvigorate an old genre that has really aged poorly. I would say the JRPG, unless you grew up playing them, there's not really a whole lot of people who are like getting back into them and being like, oh, this is such a cool, complex game, and I'm like really, really into it. And like, it just does not have the same fan base as it used to, and there aren't very many games in the JRPG, especially the turn-based JRPG subgenre, that are coming out these days. It just really isn't that big of a genre anymore, and I think it's a shame to say, because I like the turn-based RTSs, turn-based. I guess it's not turn-based if it's an RTS, but turn-based games like Civilization and other games like that. Like those games have always been, to me, like the heart of gaming. Historically and even contemporarily with computer gaming and console gaming and what have you. So I'm very, very intrigued to see where the series is going. I'm really enjoying Octopath. I would not have even remembered Octopath had it not been for this demo. This demo was the coolest part of the Nintendo Direct, the first Nintendo Direct we've gotten in like 3 years or something. And all they did was RPGs, and this was the coolest one that I saw. So yeah, if you care about my opinion on this game, graphics I'm going to give a 5 out of 5, because they did it. I mean, it's such a cute art style. And the way that the camera moves now is an added layer of depth that Octopath didn't have. So it's an improvement on what you got last time. None of that Madden 08, Madden 2010 nonsense over here. Just some good old games, Improvements. Gameplay, it's a tactical turn-based strategy game like your Dungeons and Dragons, like your Dungeon Crawl Classics, like your tabletops, like your Final Fantasy Tactics. It's it's great. There's nothing to dislike about tactical combat in a video game, especially squad-based. It's like XCOM with magic and no aliens, probably. I don't know if they're going to put aliens in the game. They might put aliens in the game. I would, if I was writing the game. But if I was writing the game, I wouldn't have even put... I would have been like, hey, we should call this thing Salt Iron Conviction from like day 3. It's seriously cool. All right, let's 86 triangle strat. We got to call it Salt Iron Conviction. And I would also put aliens in it, probably, maybe a talking dog. And so I'm hopeful for the game, and I'm excited for this game. I am so not going to pre-order it. I'm sorry. I will never pre-order another video game again. The last 2 video games that I pre-ordered, Death Stranding, Metal Case Deluxe Special Edition, so that I could have gold sunglasses playing as Norman Reedus taking a dump. And I don't have that disc because the other one was Cyberpunk 2077, and I canceled that real fast after I saw the leaked gameplay footage. And I know that leaking gameplay footage is somewhat frowned upon at the industry, and that you can get hit with some DMCAs, you can get your account taken down, you can get IP banned from your favorite streaming service. But thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing the wrong thing and showing everybody what they were about to spend $60 on during one of the worst economic crises. And I was just like, yeah, I need that $50 more than I need a smile. I need to have a fun time. I need to enjoy myself like really, really bad. But what I don't need is to lose $50 on something that's going to bum me out forever. And that is exactly what Cyberpunk was going to do. And at this point, looking at it, I don't think they're ever going to bring that game up to a point where I'm going to play it. Unfortunately, it's sad to say. It was the hype train was real. I rode that hype train for a little while, and I'll still play the tabletop role-playing game. I think Mike Pondsmith is probably one of the more creative and imaginative minds in the tabletop gaming community, and I think that if anything from that experience with the hype of Cyberpunk has taught me, is that Mike Pondsmith's really cool. Castle Falkenstein's a really neat story. Like, you should just check that out and read it. It's a really neat setting for a game. It's just so neat. And Cyberpunk is too. Cyberpunk is an amazingly well thought out and crafted setting that you can explore with your friends. It's a cool system too. It's incredibly deadly, and it's got very realistic combat in it, which I think is important and unique. That being said, I'm getting this game. I'm probably gonna get it new when it comes out. I'll probably get it like a midnight release. I won't pre-order it, but I'll buy it when it comes out. Because it seems like it's gonna be fun. I dig the storyline. They drop you in halfway through, so yeah, we're gonna get like 5 chapters of character building. I think we need 5 chapters of character building, given all the crazy shit that happens in the chapters that we do see. So I would say this is gonna be a definite buy. The graphics are an improvement. The soundtrack is great. I love I don't know the name of the person who did the soundtrack for Octopath. I know that it was their first game, and I know they knocked it out of the park. I absolutely love the soundtrack. The soundtrack to this, I believe, is by the same person, and they're doing another amazing job. And if it's not the same person, they're doing just as good of a job as the person on Octopath, and that's definite. So you got good graphics, good gameplay. The soundtrack is on point. What else do you want? What else? Overall presentation. My only other complaint is that I was able to add like this druidess lady into my party through like this weird like random event, but the random event didn't trigger until after I had traveled. And I think that, if you're gonna have a system that like sprinkles like random encounters into this very narrative game, that you should have a set timeline for those to happen. So like once I leave the village of Glenbrook and go to like that secondary location where you have that next battle, if you choose to keep the prince with you, that was like, I got that triggered like in between. I got like an event triggered like in between me talking to people and finally deciding on whether or not we were going to have that battle there, instead of during the sequence in between chapters when I was shown to be traveling through that region to get to the castle. And I think that there should be a little bit of verisimilitude with the way that the story presents itself to you in that regard, but also like use your imagination. Like there's a little bit of that. Like I was like, oh, this is something that happened while I was traveling up here, and we're kind of like retconning it in, or this is like a flashback to that, and this is like she'll be helping me out later on. I can accept that. I've heard some of the justification for the kind of like wonky storytelling in Octopath, and honestly, it's not that big of a deal to me. I really enjoy going through and collecting all of these other explorers. I don't understand like some of the narrative stuff for it, but like, yeah, it makes sense. I'm just kind of like doing this loop around the map, collecting people before I can grind enough to go and do my own missions. So, as far as a game demo, I'm gonna get, this is a 5 out of 5. And I haven't played, when was the last time you played a game demo for like multiple days? Like, I played this over 3 days. Like, I really did like take my time with it, and I soaked it in, and I really enjoyed it. Oh, and here we go. This is when you get to, oh, look at this. Are you seeing it? The 360. I mean, it's just a little set piece. It's nothing too extraordinary or extravagant, but it is a little set piece that you get to explore pretty freely. You get to look around. You get a better view of the world at a distance, like the things beyond, and it's just water. It's just some like water effects that are tilt shifted to make them look like miniatures, and it really does feel like you're playing like the coolest game of D&D ever, with like one of the best DMs who's got all of the miniatures, and they're building all of these little set pieces for you to like check out before you do this amazing combat encounter using the same set pieces. And that feeling of like a fully realized miniature set that you sit down at the table in front of, and you're just like you're looking at it before you actually get to do your battle there, and you're like, oh, maybe I could like go around here, and maybe like if people come from this way, like we could all like get on them over here and like do this. This game does a great job of pulling that off, and this game does a great job of pulling off, like Octopath, the feeling of playing a game of D&D like at a tabletop with your friends, and it has that same feeling of like presentation. And for that, I gotta say, 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, will be picking this game up. Do recommend it to your friends. I think you should, if you haven't already played this demo, pick it up, get it, play it. It's radical. It is awesome. And if you haven't played Octopath and you liked, or are at least passively interested in turn-based JRPGs with pretty decently well-written stories for you to explore and experience, check that out as well. And I would even, check out the demo if you're unsure, because the combat system in that game, while I hate grinding and I hate random encounters because of the slog and also the way that you can kind of like get cut, you can get like walled off because of your experience level, the game does a really good job of kind of guiding you where to go next in a field of like, oh yeah, there's caves you just don't want to mess with right now. Don't even go. It's like danger level 50 or level 2. Just walk away. You don't get stuck in those dungeons in the same way you would in another game or in other games. And the way that the break and weakness system in their combat works really, really well to give you the ability to you can learn the weaknesses of your enemies, and then you can play those weaknesses to your advantage in a very strategic and cool way. So yes, I think that Octopath has been a lot of fun for me. Oh my goodness, Octopath has been a lot of fun for me, and I've been having a really good time with it so far. So I recommend that you pick it up, and with that, I'm going to head out. As always, I've been Zach Lane, a.k.a. Judge Zed, a.k.a. Zacarius the Pious of House Lane, first of his name, former Lord of Give a Shit Ashir, Harbinger of Sass, and Holy Prince of the Sea of Ash, and Lord of the Game. And that game has been, for the love of God, Salt Iron Conviction.